Hi FS faculty, it's Heather here with another brief video about a concept I learned in one of the AQ courses I took in fall 23. This course was entitled Designing Learner-Centered and Equitable Courses. The concept I'm going to talk about is related to grading. And this was a big change for me and really caused me to think a lot about my grading practices and approach to assessment. The module was developing equitable grading practices, and the idea from the course is that we need to evaluate students based on their actual demonstration of knowledge, and our grading practices should not interfere with that demonstration of knowledge. So I had always accepted late work in my classes, but there was a 20% deduction, and I accepted late work for only 2 weeks after the due date. I figured these behaviors and these practices were helping students to prepare for other courses and or employment situations and similar. But what I learned in this module is that by reducing the grade or reducing the points based on my policy, I was actually not giving students credit for demonstrating their actual knowledge. Also, a policy reducing grades for late work may not be equitable because of the many situations our students experience, and sometimes we may relax a policy based on a student's experience, while other times we may not. Based on what I learned from this module, I changed my makeup work policy in terms of late work and redoing work. All of my courses run Monday to Monday, whether they're asynchronous or synchronous, and late assignments now can be accepted at any time during the semester. I was worried that this new policy would encourage students to hand in a lot of late work at the end of the semester, and I would be stuck grading all of this work. We have reached the end of the semester in the spring, and I found that yes, about 3 students in the total of my 3 classes this spring did this, where I had some late work to grade in the drop boxes. One thing was submitted, I saw 63 days late. But again, it was only 3 students out of my 3 classes of around 20, so it actually didn't become as big of a problem as I thought it would be. We are lucky in foundational studies because we have the learning outcome of professionalism. And we grade students based on their professional behaviors, including submitting assignments late or missing assignments. So we still are evaluating students on those student behaviors, and there are still consequences if students submit late work or have missing assignments. Those consequences, however, are not impacting the student's demonstration of knowledge. Now you'll see in my makeup work policy in my syllabus, I still don't allow students to take quizzes late. They can be made up, they cannot be made up because they are open for 8 days in Brightspace, Monday to Monday, and students can take the quizzes at their convenience. Something I changed, however, after learning about this concept was that I will allow a student to have 1 retake of 1 quiz. And again, that will allow the student to demonstrate knowledge if for some reason something didn't go well with the first attempt at that quiz. If a student requests to retake a quiz, I use a little reflection exercise. In the AQ course, this was called an exam wrapper, but I just called it a quiz reflection. I simply emailed the student, asking the student to respond to these prompts about the performance on the original quiz. What is the reason I did not perform well in the quiz as I had wished? What behaviors led to a lower performance on this quiz? And what changes will I make to perform better on the next quiz? After the students fully answered these questions, I reopened the quiz for the one retake. I also implemented a new policy in that assignments could be redone one time with permission provided in the grading feedback in Brightspace. So in other words, if I saw that a student didn't do well on an assignment in the Brightspace Dropbox feedback, I encouraged the student to resubmit. When a student did not submit an assignment, in other words, an assignment was late, in the Dropbox, I wrote the phrase, "not submitted yet," as you can see on the example on the screen. I was tapping into the power of yet, as explained by Dr. Carol Dweck in her mindset theory, because I didn't want the student to be demotivated with simply receiving a 0. In fact, I stopped putting zeros in the grading feedback when an assignment was missing, except for right at midterm and of course for a final grade. So right before we entered midterm grades, I did go through and put zeros for any missing assignments so students understood where they actually were standing as in terms of their grade. And then of course at the end with final grades, I had to put zeros for any missing assignments. But here's an example where you see originally the student didn't submit. I indicated not submitted yet, and then when the student submitted, this was an example of an excellent assignment, You can see my feedback. I was really impressed, gave specific feedback about addressing each item using critical thinking, and in fact, I asked the student to use the submission as an example for my future students. So here was a student who, in my old methods, may have been demotivated and may have not even considered resubmitting this assignment if he simply saw a 0 in the gradebook. But I wrote not submitted yet. The student understood. Late work would be accepted. The student submitted the assignment, and it was one of the best ones I've ever received, leading me to ask to use the assignment as an example. Here's just a second example where you can see my approach to asking students to resubmit when they didn't do well in the assignment. In this case, I gave specific feedback explaining where I saw what was completed, but where I also didn't see some elements that were required and some missing elements. And so my last sentence, please resubmit for more points if you'd like. So I encouraged students to resubmit when I pointed out missing or assignments that weren't complete.